Hey guys, you're welcome back to my channel today. Thank you so much for stopping by. In this video, I'll be cutting and sewing this really stylish dress that you can see on your screen. So I used 3.5 yards of crepe fabric for this dress. If you want the down part of your dress to be fuller, you can use about 4 yards for your dress. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. I'll start by drafting on my pattern paper before transferring to the fabric. So this dress does not have half length, so it's just a straight dress. So you're going to be taking the measurement from your shoulder to your knee. And if you don't want the pleat to start exactly on the knee line, you can go up by 2 inches from your knee line, that is 2 inches above your knee line. So I'll start by taking half of my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. I'll indicate the 8 inches with a dot. On that dot, I'll go down by 1 inch for my shoulder slope, and I'll slant from there into the neckline area. After doing that, I'll go ahead and start taking my points. The first point is the distance from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 10 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my under bust point, which is 13 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my waist point, which is 16 inches. The next point is the distance from my shoulder to my hip line, which is 24 inches. So I'm going to indicate all these points and I'm going to rule straight lines across. After doing that, I'll mark the distance from my shoulder to my knee line. Okay, so this is where the part of the dress is going to stop, and I'll use the pleat to complete my dress. So mine is 36 inch. I added half an inch to the 36 inches for my joining allowance. The next thing I did was to go down from my shoulder slope by 8 inches, which is my armhole depth. On that 8 inches mark, I'll make sure I have the same measurement that I have on the shoulder line, and then I'm going to connect the 2 dots into a straight line like this. After doing that, I'll roll another straight line across. Okay, this new line is going to serve as my chest line. After doing that, I'll go ahead and label my lines. The first line is my chest line, the second one is my bust line, the third one is my under bust line, the fourth one is my waist line, the fifth one is my hip line. So I'm going to take in my darts now. We're not supposed to have the under bust line for this particular dress, but I want to take in my darts. And to take in my darts, I'm not going to take the darts from the bust line like we normally do. I will start taking the darts from the under bust line. I'm going to explain why soon. And I'm going to add extra 1 inch to my darts. Okay, so the darts I'm using, that is the nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2 I'm using, is 4 inches, but I added 1 inch to it, making it 5 inches, because I'm going to be sewing in the dart. The waistline, I went down by 1 inch. That is how long I want the dart to be. Okay, so after doing that, I'll connect the dots into a straight line. Okay, so if your nipple to nipple is 7 inches, you're going to divide 7 inches by 2, which is 3.5 inches, and you're going to add 1 inch to it for your dart. So you're going to be marking 4.5 inches for your dart. Okay, so after doing that, I'm going to take half an inch on both sides of the straight line, and then I'm going to connect like this. Okay, so my dart is sitting on the under bust line. I did not extend it to the bust line. Okay, so this is the particular dart we'll be taking for this dress. After doing that, I'm going to place my tape on this straight line, and I'm going to divide what I have into 2 equal halves. So what I have is 8 inches. Half of 8 inches is 4 inches. I marked the 4 inches. On that dot, I came in by half an inch, and I indicated the half an inch with a dot. On the chest line, I'm going to place my bust circumference divided by 4. After doing that, I'll connect from the shoulder slope to meet the half an inch point, and from there to meet the point that I have on the bust line. Next thing I'll do now is to start placing my measurements. Okay, so you can make this dress as free as you want it. I already have my bust circumference divided by 4 on the chest line. So on the waist line, I placed my waist circumference divided by 4. I replaced the dart of 1 inch. Now I'm going to determine how free I want the dress to be. Okay, for me, I'll be adding extra 4 inches to my measurement. Okay, so after placing my waist circumference divided by 4, I'll replace the 1 inch dart and I'll add extra 4 inches. Okay, so this is how free my dress is going to be. On the hip line, I'll place my hip circumference divided by 4, and I'll also mark the same 4 inches allowance that I marked on the bust line. So we don't need to place the under bust measurement. Okay, the only thing we need the under bust for is the dart. So on the chest line, I'm going to place about 2 inches for the allowance because I want the bust area to be fitted, so I didn't add up to 4 inches. I only added 2 inches as my allowance for the bust line because I want that part of the dress to be fitted. After doing that, I connected from the chest line to the waist, from there to the hip, and from the hip I just connected straight down. After doing that, I placed my tape on the hip line, and what I had there was about 13.5 inches. I want to confirm if I have the same thing on the base of the dress, and I have the same thing. So on the neckline area, I'm going to be taking 3.5 inches as my neck width, and for the depth of the back I'll be using 1 inch, and that of the front I'll be using 2.5 inches for now. And that is because the front of the dress has a slit there, so I'm going to be cutting it open. So before I cut it open, I'll take 2.5 inches first. So if you want it deeper, you can go down more than 2.5 inches. I already have 1 inch taken out for the back, so I added 1.5 inches to it. So the front depth is 2.5 inches. I'm going to connect it back to the 3.5 inches like this. After doing that, I'll go ahead and start cutting. So this pattern paper is for both the front and the back. So you can see that on the armhole area, I didn't come in by half an inch. I just cut it out the way it is, and I went ahead to cut out the front neckline. So I'm also going to open this dart open. As you can see, I went ahead to place the pattern paper on my fabric folded into 2, and then I used it to cut out the back. So I added my zipper allowance to the back. My zipper allowance is 1.5 inches because I want to add a zipper to the dress. It's not mandatory for you to add a zipper to your dress, okay? So I'm going to open up the zipper allowance. You can see that I added allowance on the neckline area, on the shoulder area, and on the armhole area. I'm going to remove my pins. After opening the dart, make sure you open the dart on the fabric before you take out your pattern paper, okay? So I used a razor blade to open up the dart, and this is what the back looks like. The next thing I'll do now is to cut out facing for the back. So I'll fold my scrap fabric into 2, and I'll place the neckline of my dress on it. I'll cut it out just like you see me doing, and I'm going to place them right sides facing right side. I'll sew in place. If you have enough fabric, you can cut out your facing to cover the armhole area. Remember, this is a sleeveless dress, so you still need to pipe the armhole area. So I don't have enough fabric, so what I did was to cut out another piece of fabric that I used to pipe the armhole area. You're also going to cut out another piece of fabric like the one I'm holding for your loop. Go ahead and sew it, turn it inside out, and then iron it in place. So I've gone ahead to use the pattern paper to cut the front. So I'm cutting out the neckline. You can see that I'm cutting about half an inch away from the line that I have on the pattern paper. That half an inch is going to serve as the stitching allowance for the neckline. I added half an inch to the shoulder area. So I'm supposed to come in by half an inch, but this dress does not have any sleeves, so we don't want the armhole area to be too open, so I'm not going to come in. I'll leave the armhole the way it is, so the front and the back armhole is going to be the same. So what I'll do now is to use my blade to also open the dart for the front, and then I'll use my scissors to just cut through to the end, as you can see, okay? So after doing that, you're going to remove your pattern paper, okay? And then you're also going to cut out facing for the neckline of the front. So like I said, if you have enough fabric to go down to the armhole area, go ahead and cut out the facing and then use it to pipe the neckline and the armhole at the same time. After removing the pattern paper, I'm going to slit the front of the dress, okay? So it depends on how deep you want it to be. For now, I'm going to be marking 4 inches. Okay, I'm marking 4 inches, and then I'm going to just slit it open, okay? So you can make it deeper. If you check the one on the thumbnail, it's quite deep, but I didn't want mine to be too deep. So after cutting out these 4 inches, I decided to go down again by 1 inch because we're going to fold the front like this, and you need it to be more open. So if you want that design on the front to be really open, you have to go down more, okay? For me, I did about 5 inches, okay? So now that I've done that, I'm going to now cut out my facing for the front. So the center front is on fold, I'm going to place it like this, and then I'm going to follow the exact shape that I have on the main fabric. If I add enough fabric, I would have cut it all the way to the armhole area just to have a neat finishing. But since I don't have that, I'll cut out another piece of fabric that I'll use to pipe the armhole area. If you don't have another piece of fabric, you can turn it using your bias, or you can hem it, okay, anyone that you prefer. So I'm going to place them right sides, facing right sides like this. I'll pin, and then I'll head over to my sewing machine to sew. After sewing, you can use your hemming gum to just hold everything down on the wrong side. So you're going to head over to your sewing machine to follow all through like this, and then you also pipe the armhole area. Okay, just go ahead and do that. So you're also going to cut out a piece of fabric that you'll be using for your loop. I measured my dart, and what I have is 4 inches. Okay, so guys, I've gone ahead to sew the neckline in place. All you have to do now is to fold this part of the neckline and you iron it down. So if you want to fold it down and you want it to be really big, you have to slit it open. I did just 5 inches, so you can do more than that. The only problem with that is that your cleavage is going to show. After holding it down with your pin, you can go ahead and iron it flat. And if you want it to be more stable, you can insert your hemming gum underneath it and you iron it down. So this is mine. It's not that wide, but it's okay. So the next thing you do now is to cut out your loop. So cut out a piece of fabric like the one I cut out earlier. I sewed it and I turned it inside out and I ironed it. So each of this loop is about 3 inches long. So I'm going to place the loop inside the dart, as you can see me doing. So you can measure the dart and divide it into 3, 4, 5 depending on the amount of loop you want to put. Okay, so I'll be doing 4 on each lines. So I'm placing the first one here, and then you can start marking. Maybe you can do 1 inch interval, half an inch interval. It depends on what you want. Okay, just mark and place the loop. Okay, and then make sure you fill the opening up. After placing the loops on this dart, I'll repeat the same thing for the other side of the dart, and I'll do the same thing for the back. Okay, after doing that, for the back, I'm going to also pipe the neckline and I'll fix my zipper to the back. I'll also pipe the armhole area. Okay, so after pinning, I have 4 here, and this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. I'll turn it over to the right side. This is how it's going to look after sewing. So I've gone ahead to sew. This is the back. I've fixed my zipper in place. I've also fixed the loop in place. This is what it looks like. I also piped the armhole and the neckline area. Okay, so just go ahead and do that. Okay, what I'll do now is to join both front and back piece together. I've sewn that area of the front, and this is what it looks like. I've also ironed the neckline area. I placed my hemming gum underneath it and I just ironed it down because I want it to be more stable. So now I'm going to place them right sides, facing right side. I'll pin the shoulders in place and I'll head over to my sewing machine to sew. After sewing the shoulders in place, I'll also sew the sides using 1 inch. Okay, and for the armhole area, you're going to reduce your armhole depth by 1 inch since it does not have a sleeve. So instead of taking 8 inches, I'll be sewing on 7 inches. Okay, so I'll sew using 1 inch all the way to the base. After sewing, this is what I have. The next thing we're going to do is to gather our fabric to the base. So now you can decide to leave the base the way it is straight, and if you want to give it any shape, you can give it the shape before you add the gather to the base. I want to leave mine to be straight. If you don't want it straight, give it the shape that you want now before you sew your gathers to it. Okay, so this is the fabric I'll be using for the gathers. It's about 3.5 yard long, so it is 36 inches times 3.5. Okay, and the length is 20 inches. That is plus my hemming allowance. Okay, so what I'll do now is to head over to my sewing machine. You can pleat, you can gather. Just go ahead and gather the whole fabric to the base of your dress. Another way to know the amount of fabric to use on the base, you can just measure around the base. Whatever you have, you times it by 3, by 4, by 5, depending on how full you want the base to be, and you just go ahead and gather. So I've gone ahead to gather mine, and this is what it looks like. This is the back, and this is what it looks like at the front. Okay, so you're going to hem the base of the gathers. Okay, then you cut out another piece of fabric that you'll be using to lace your loop. This is what I have. So you lace them together from this end to the back, just like you can see. Okay, you just pass your rope through like this to give it that fit on the waist area. Okay, so now we'll be cutting out the bow on the shoulder area. I've gone ahead to cut up this piece of fabric. I placed it right side, facing right side. I sewed it and I turned it inside out, and I gave it a good press. Okay, so this one is just a straight fabric. Okay, the length of the fabric is about 42 inches. Okay, while the wideness is about 4 inches. So remember, the fabric is on fold. That means when I cut it out, it was about 8.5 inches. I used the 0.5 inches to sew, and then I turned it inside out. So what I have is 4 inches. I also went ahead to cut out this square shaped fabric that I'll be using for the bow. So the wideness is 10 inches and the length is 10 inches. So it is 10 by 10 inches. So when I cut it out, it was 10.5 inches all around, and I used the 0.5 inches to sew all the way around, and I turned it inside out. I gave it a good press. So this is how I'm going to gather the bow together. I'm using my hand to just arrange everything in place to give it this shape that I want. So I'm going to use my needle and thread to hold this shape in place. Okay, so just use your needle and thread to hold it in place. It does not have to be perfect. Okay, after holding it in place, I'm going to stitch it down, and then I'll cut out the excess thread. After doing that, I'll repeat the same thing for the other bow. I'm going to use my free hand to gather it like this. Okay, and then I'll use my needle and thread to just stack it like this. Okay, after doing that, this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to bring in the other piece of fabric that I already sewed and iron. I'll fold it into two, just like you see me doing. Okay, I'll pass it through the other side of the bow, and I'll just knot it like this. Okay, so you can make it stylish by making one side longer than the other one. Okay, so after sewing, you just arrange it in place. You can knot it twice. Okay, you can knot it twice, but make sure you arrange everything properly. Okay, so this is what I have after arranging it. I repeat the same thing for this other side. Okay, just fold it into two, and then you're going to pass it through the other side and you knot it. You can knot it twice, you can just leave it like this depending on what you want. Okay, so after doing that, this is what I have for the bow. So what I'll do is to place the bow like this on the shoulder area. Okay, you see the way I'm placing it. So one side of the rope is coming to the front while the other one is going to the back. Okay, so you're going to use your needle and thread to tack it to the shoulder. That is the area that has the joining on the shoulder, and then you repeat the same thing on this other side. Okay, just make it stylish and work your way around it. So after doing that, the last thing I'll do is to hem the base of my dress. And yeah guys, that is all for this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. Don't forget to like, leave your questions